You got it.
All right.
Here we go. We're on.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to our first Active Voices webinar, where we'll be doing our postcard campaign, a whole lot of initiatives. I'm excited for this particular moment in time together. I am Pastor Danny Gibbons. I'm the statewide organizer here at Musha, Minnesota Unitarian Universalist Social Justice Alliance, here in frigid Minnesota. For those of you all who may not know where I am videoing in from, I definitely should have a hat and scarf on right now. It's ferociously cold here. I'm again grateful for an opportunity to be present with the lovely folks that we will be here hosting this webinar with. As just kind of some housekeeping things, I just want to jump in and talk about, for those who have never been on a Zoom webinar, just kind of some etiquette things. You'll notice if you're calling in by phone, if you have a smartphone, there should be a tab that comes up on the bottom of your screen where you're able to either mute your phone. So if you're not talking, we ask that folks mute their phone or their laptops or iPads, whatever devices that you're using, so as to decrease kind of background noise while the other folks are presenting on here. If for any chance or for any reason that you may have a question during this, there's a little tab down there where you can jump in and ask a question and raise your hand. I want to say it's down there under the participants tab, and you can raise your hand. The host, who is our wonderful Kelli Clement, will be fielding kind of questions. There's a chat box as well if there's a need to share, like, hey, I've got to pop out and take care of something with the dog, just so folks know what's going on. And more importantly, we ask that you just be mindful of your on-camera etiquette. I've been doing Zoom meetings for quite some time, and I've seen some really interesting things happen on Zoom. And I think folks don't necessarily understand that they're in front of a camera because they're in front of a laptop. So just, mindful. We don't necessarily want to see your whole granola mix while you're talking and participating in this webinar. Amen. But I just am, again, grateful and thankful. I am going to be quiet and turn over to our wonderful host, Kelli Clement from Active Voices. Thank you all.
Oh, Danny, thank you so much for making it possible for us to do this. And welcome, everyone. We are so delighted that you have joined us. All of you are calling in from the Midwest, a lot from Minnesota, a few from Iowa, and a few from Wisconsin. So we're all in this deep freeze together. Really glad that we can be warm in our places together. So we are happy to welcome you to our powerful postcard program webinar. We're really excited that you're joining us because we're really excited about this project. We are a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens who are changing the way we do justice at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis. Joan Baez said that action is the antidote to despair. And at First Unitarian Society in Minneapolis, we know this is true. After the election of 2016, a member came back to us and said, I've been away for a while, but I got to do something. I'm going to write a letter every week, and who wants to join me? So this is a good time, as we're telling this story, for me to start our slideshow, our PowerPoint, so I can tell you a little bit of this story and what we're doing and who all is going to join us. So we will include some time for Q&A after. You can put questions in the chat if you want to, but right now I'm going to start our slideshow. Let me see if I can do this. Share. Slideshow. Is it there? Do we see it? Okay. Oh, that's too much. I don't want that. So here are some of us gathered, as we have done for weeks, talking about how we're going to bring this story in.
I'm not seeing anything.
Oh dear.
Am I looking in the wrong place?
Yeah, I don't see the slideshow either.
All right, hang on. Let me try that again. Okay. This worked earlier. I'm going to press share. No, That's not what I want right there. I'm going to deny that. I'm going to go to PowerPoint and slideshow. No, I've done this twice without a problem. So we're going to keep doing it until we get it right.
Okay. And in the meantime, as a potential way to troubleshoot, if you can email it to me, maybe I can share from my laptop, Kelly.
Could do. Hold on one moment, Danny. I will.
And thank you for bearing with us.
I'm seeing a number on the screen, but nothing else.
A number on the screen?
Now, can you see that?
It says Fran Bolke.
Oh, bummer. I was so proud that I was just going to have that smooth as silk. Danny, hang on one second and I will just send it to you.
Okay. Okay. We'll get it started. There's Grace.
And I'll just keep talking a little bit. I'm sending it to Danny Givens at moosejaw.org, and it's the first link that says webinar presentation. And I've just sent that. So let me just keep telling the story. So Kathleen said, I'm going to write a letter every week. Who wants to join me? And so this group that was born out of despair is now joyful, committed, engaged, and passionate about being heard on policy issues. I'm joined tonight by the core members of our Active Voices team, each of whom will tell you a little bit about how we do this. We have Mary Ann Lundquist, Barbara Blackstone, Kathleen Quinn, Nancy Miller, and Anita Martinez. So before they speak, let me do a little more by way of introduction and answer the question, what are we doing here? What is the Powerful Postcard Program? Each week, we facilitate sending many postcards with substantial content signed by our congregants to our political representatives. We engage in issues, but we never endorse or disparage candidates. And this nonpartisan approach keeps us well within our 501c3 guidelines. And in the handouts that we will have available are some very specific rules to get you started around the 501c3 question. What are we allowed to do? We're going to share with you how we do it and give you some suggestions for how you can create a similar program in your congregation. Or if it feels like too big a stretch to do this on your own, we will invite you to join our postcard program. And at the end of the presentation, we'll tell you more about how you can do that. For now, there are a few things that you should know. One is that we will have handouts available of everything that we're saying. So you don't have to take notes really quickly or anything like that. I mean, you can if you want, obviously, but we've written down everything that we're saying here. My email address is in the chat. And if you want these handouts or want to be included in our program, I would ask you just to send me an email, and then someone from our congregation will get in touch with you and we'll talk about how you want to connect. The webinar will be archived so that you can watch it again or share it with others from your congregation. And the third is that we are really excited to support you in doing this, not just because we're altruistic, but we think that the best way for us to do our work is to multiply it exponentially. And so that's really why we're doing this. So it's our first time. We've all stepped out of our comfort zones to do this webinar. So we appreciate your grace to us as we do it. And we'll have some time for questions and answers afterwards. So we're going to do this thing together. Now, Danny says it didn't come through.
If you could send it again, that would be helpful.
All right. And Laura also tells me there are a few people who aren't muted, so I'm going to just mute a few people right now. Hold on.
Kelly?
Yes?
Are you going to be able to send it to Danny, or should I send it off mine?
Well, why don't you send it, Kathleen, since you're the creator of it? And Danny's
I'll send the email now.
Danny, I sent it to Pastor Danny Givens at Moose Jaw. I'm so sorry for the tech problems, folks. We really worked on this and ironed it all out. So wouldn't you know that this is how it went. I'm going to try this one more time with slideshow. And so sorry for this.
Oh,
There you go. Now
hi.
you just got to select the slideshow. You're in there.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Hey, can you see it now?
Yes.
Yay! Excellent. Thank you all.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to go through these fairly quickly till we get, that's what all I just said. I'm not going to say it again. And Marianne, I'm going to ask you to make sure you're unmuted. And if you will tell us a bit about why do we do postcards?
Thank you. I'm Marianne Lundquist, and I'm here to say why postcards. The First Amendment states in part, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the right of the people to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So why do we do postcards? First, they're really easy to do. It's simple to tag along to our weekly issue postcard. All you need is a computer, cardstock, labels, stamps, and a cutter. Once you get the hang of it, postcards could take a short time each week if you choose to do the easy bake type recipe. Tabling can also have community building outcomes. Coffee hour, intermission, or break time is a fantastic time to meet and get to know new or more people in your organization. Perhaps some will want to join your efforts. Second, pre-printed postcards are easy to sign. Once you get people to your table, all they need to do is write, print their name, and add their zip code. Any citizen can do it, and don't forget young people. They can sign too. Sometimes we overlook people under 18. They have every right to be heard. Think Parkland students. Signing a postcard or two can take less than a minute. Who doesn't have a minute? Third, volume, the real reason for postcards. In congressional offices, no matter how a message comes in by phone, email, post, fax, or even carrier pigeon, it is entered into a software program known as a constituent management system. Written communications are a very effective way of communicating with Congress. Also, a clear, simple request on a postcard is very easy for staff to count how many constituents have a concern or position on a particular bill or issue. It is true that a well-written personal letter could have greater influence, but we have found that very few people have the time, inclination, or expertise to write a personal letter or postcard during coffee hour. Letters also need to be scanned for toxins, which prevents timely delivery. Other messages that staffers tend to disregard include tweets, Facebook posts, online petitions, comments submitted through Apps Accountable, and mass emails that originate from websites of advocacy groups. Scripted phone calls are also less effective. These days, writing messages at legislators' websites can be daunting because of the need to go through the process of identifying similar items in pictures and then verify home addresses to make sure that the email is not coming from a bot. Fourth, postcards are effective if well done. How to craft a postcard statement is in the handouts, and you'll hear more about that. Partner and network for greater impact. What is effective is to send postcards at the same time that other organizations are also writing, calling, and emailing on the subject. 50 postcards are great. 15,000 letters, postcards, calls, and emails get real attention. Think of the Great Lakes Cleanup Funding Bill this past year, which increased funding for the cleanup from 30 million to 300 million because of citizen advocacy. It's important to note here that if an issue requires immediate action, phone calls are necessary. Hand out the names and phone numbers of those to be contacted. Fifth, signers feel good that they are making a difference. Barack Obama said, the best way not to feel hopeless is to get up and do something. We offer members and friends the opportunity to take a positive action every Sunday. You would be amazed at how often we get thanked for this meaningful work. One caution here. With success comes helpful suggestions for other projects to work on, or partisan or personal issues for postcards. Be kind to yourselves and others, and just say no tactfully. This is truly an opportunity to make a little difference in our shared world. Thanks much.
Thank you, Marianne, for taking us through that. Now I'm going to ask Barbara to talk to us a little bit about how you do your research. Each person has a little different way of approaching it, but you have a particular take on it. So if you will unmute yourself, Barbara, and share with us.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Even before I returned to the Twin Cities from Portland, Oregon, I was intrigued by the Active Voices group at First Unitarian. I knew that participating, I would become more familiar with the issues facing us as a society, and it offered an opportunity to make mine and other voices heard. I knew that it would give me a group of involved people with different viewpoints, and that would help me work through to some better ideas and to help the group come to consensus on important issues. I have found my participation in Active Voices to be all of that and more. I especially like that we laugh a lot, and we can throw half-formed ideas out without fear of being ostracized. I have always enjoyed researching and combining various ideas into something that can be explained and developed into action. I spend a lot of time following various threads online to pick up perspectives on issues that are of interest to me or are part of political conversations. I find myself particularly interested in the economic and tax issues which face us, and often will find myself creating a mini seminar for our meetings. The sites that I particularly gravitate to are billed as nonpartisan, although some bend either to more liberal or more conventional ends. On the day before or the morning of our meetings, I will often check to see what issues are scheduled to be dealt with in the next few weeks in Congress in order to be up to date on what is happening. I also read about housing, jobs, and economics, especially the effects of automation and demographics, for example, our aging population and what that means. You will find a list of sites I like in the handouts, along with the Washington Post and the New York Times, A few of the other sites I like are Think Progress, Economic Policy Institute, TaxVox, Kia at Strong Towns, and City Lab. There's a longer list in the handouts. So to review, read, view general political news, follow sites on particular topics, set out pluses and minuses so that you know why you might want to support or not some issue. Check for actions to be taken by your representatives and look for areas that need voter education. We often are asked for more detail by those who are willingly signing the postcards, but sometimes they want to hear more about that particular topic and why we picked it. In the meantime, enjoy the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Always good. I always learn something when I come by the meetings and hear what you're working on. So thank you for that. Kathleen, I'm going to ask you to be sure and unmute yourself and now share with us how we go from a number of ideas to what ideas we're going to focus on for that particular week.
All of the members of our group have our own particular interests that we follow. Among them, we cover climate change, environmental threats, criminal justice reform, reproductive health, childhood trauma, healthcare availability, and many others. We then bring them to our weekly meetings, the topics that are of high concern, and present them for discussion. The weekly topic for the postcard is determined by consensus of the group. It does sometimes take an hour or two, but generally we do come to a consensus. We may choose a topic for this week and agree that another topic will be the focus for the next week. On rare occasions, we will have two topics for the week if we agree that both are urgent. So we have a consensus, we get it out there. It does take time, but we do come to an agreement. And it's enjoyable while we're doing it, and we learn stuff.
Wonderful. That last, I don't know if you're looking at your screen, but also that last piece was answering the question I asked earlier. The topic and the subject dictate who the cards will go to.
No, I was looking at my cheat sheet.
Ah, fine. Thank you. We'll come back to you in a little bit, Kathleen, because you've got some more info for us. Nancy Miller, you are our editor. Nancy, I may have inadvertently muted you. Will you speak and let me know if we can hear you? Oh, I think I've muted her. Hold on a minute. Are you there?
Mute myself.
There we go. No, I did that to you. So Nancy, will you talk to us about how we get from the idea to how we're going to send that message?
I will. First of all, I just want to say what a pleasure it is to work with colleagues on this enterprise. We may have been acquainted before, but now we're good friends and we have a great time working together. Words are important and powerful. And for this reason, we have to choose and use them with care, whether we're communicating with family and friends or in more public settings. We try to write the text for our postcards with that in mind. Postcards don't give us much room for lengthy messages, so here are a few things to remember as you construct the text for your postcards. Once you've decided on the issue you want to address, describe the action you want or don't want taken in simple words understood by everybody. They should get the reader's attention and be emphatic, but not inflammatory. I'm known in our group as the exclamation mark killer, and I do that because exclamation marks can make your message sound as though it's shouting, if not hysterical. Choice of the right words will get your point across. In your text, make clear the urgency of your request, action that should be taken now. If you're talking about a specific bill before Congress, address it by name and number, but in such a way as to be defined and understandable by all your readers. People are rightly reluctant to sign a postcard that gives them only a number with no descriptive text, either in its title or a single line of explanation. It goes without saying that we have to be sure of the accuracy of our messages and that we're conveying them in the best possible way. That means a quick but careful review by your postcard crew. Then get them printed, addressed, stamped, signed, and sail them away. You will have added many good drops to the ones in the bucket. Congratulate yourselves! Exclamation.
Thank you, Nancy. Wonderful. You've helped us all refine our language and communication and punctuation. I appreciate that. Kathleen, we're going to come back to you and ask you now, once we've got a really clear, cogent, urgent message, how do we go from that to a postcard that we can print and cut and send?
One of the first things is, how is the wording going to physically fit on the postcard size of about 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches? What is the most important part of the message? Do we want to capitalize it, print it in red? What is the most important piece? Then how does it look? When you sit back and look at it, is it visual balance, attractiveness, cohesiveness, readability? What should be accented, bold, underlined, all caps, larger size, italics maybe, though we rarely use it. Our Supreme Editor, as you have heard, frowns on exclamation points, but we do use them every once in a while. We also look at the color of the cardstock. We started out with plain white, and we have now branched out into red and green and yellow and all kinds of things. We think they're more eye-catching and stand out better than the color of the ink. Red often to get their attention. The fonts, I prefer a font with the serif, the little curly things on a capital I and a lowercase l. The font that this presentation is in does not have them, and sometimes distinguishing between a capital I and a lowercase l is difficult. Once I get it put together, I send it out for everybody to look at, check the spelling, check the design, so forth and so on. When I get it back, we start printing. For a congregation our size, we typically send out 120 to 150 postcards a week. Our biggest cost is in postage, but our program is adaptable to congregations of any size and even to individuals. So it can be adapted to everybody. And there is more about costs in the handouts, but it will also depend on how many you do. The more the merrier, but there we are.
Thank you, Kathleen. You really, in a lot of ways, do the lion's share of our computer.
Yes.
It's possible to have it out. So I think in any group, it's important to have the person who's really willing to futz with it, as it were. Now, Anita, if you will unmute yourself and unmute yourself and tell us a little bit how we go from having a stack of postcards to getting them in the hands of the congregation and then getting them in the mail.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. This is the fun part, really. We're inviting everybody to sign a postcard to make a difference. So first, make an announcement. In the announcement, tell everybody about the postcards and what their topics are. You can put it in your newsletter, request an announcement from the pulpit, order of service, weekly emails, all are good. Postcards about issues that we care about and can make a difference about are available. Please look for our table after the service in the social hour community room. All you have to do is read them and sign them. Very easy. And then second, meanwhile, back at the ranch, at some point in the social hour community room, set up a long table, chairs for 1 or 2 table volunteers, grab a handful of pens and a basket or container to collect all the signed postcards. On the table, display both sides of the postcards. Invite people to see what they say on both sides. We invite and urge everyone, and by everyone we do mean kids and youth. Just because they're not voters yet doesn't mean they're not constituents. And so kids and youth are important to engage. So urge everyone, kids, youth, members, clergy, staff, and visitors, and have them take a look at the postcards and sign them if they agree. Remind people to include their zip codes next to their signature. As Barbara was saying earlier, be prepared to answer questions about the postcard message. We are trying to make a difference by influencing our own representatives' vote on an issue. We are generally either trying to prevent or promote a particular bill. Above all, we are nonpartisan. When people disagree with a particular message, please don't twist their arms or start a debate. Instead, just hand them a blank postcard and invite them to write their own message. We will stamp, address, and mail all postcards. And don't forget, thank everybody for participating, whether they signed or not. And last but not least, the postcard volunteers will stamp and mail the postcards. And that's all there is to it. You're done. Easy. Thank you.
And we have a few photos. We can see young Franklin there and several groups of people signing and groups of our colorful postcards. We always make sure that we tally them up too, because we like to know how many we're sending. We will send you our handouts that kind of have our recipes, how we do it. There are 2 ways for you to get involved. One is for you to set up your own program to take our ideas and adapt them to however works in your congregation. You may already be doing something similar, and we'd love to know about that. Or we invite you to send me an email of a contact person. I'll share it with someone from our team, and someone will get in touch with you and have a conversation about how would you like to be involved? How many people are on do you have a team? Is it just one person? Can you only do it once a month? What's your particular setting like? And then we will send you our formatted cards for that particular week. So all you have to do is print it and cut it and stamp it and get it ready to go. I think somebody said, I'm not positive, we do not stamp them until after they are signed. We don't want to lose those stamps. And I'll just say for those of you in Iowa and Wisconsin, I think you're the only non-Minnesotans we have tonight. For instance, this week we did an action that was directed to our state legislators rather than to a national office. So if that was like the only card we had for a particular week, we would probably just not do one, or we'd help you find out what's something that you could do in your local area. So we're learning our way through support, but we really do want to be able to support you as we do this. As I say, not just because we're nice, but we think it really increases everybody's impact the more of these we can send. Just a few more cards of folks at First Unitarian Society having a good time and in getting people very involved in the congregation. We live by this, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg is she is our action figure, our hero, and that's the end of the slideshow. So now is a time that we would, I think everybody is muted right now. I'm going to unmute some phone people because otherwise you wouldn't know that I've muted you. Are there questions that you have for us? And we'll see who we can field them. Jane, do you have a question?
I actually have three short, I think they're short questions.
Okay.
But I could ask one and let someone else ask a question if you want to do it that way.
Well, go with your first one and then we'll see how we're doing.
Okay. You made reference to printing and cutting and all sorts of things about postcards. I have no idea how you do that. What kind of expertise do you need to be able to do something like that?
Kathleen, you want to take that one?
I'll unmute me. I have a basic computer and a fairly small printer. And what you need is a computer that can get the emails with the postcard, a Word, or possibly Adobe that can read a PDF, a printer that will handle fairly lightweight cardstock, and preferably print in color. What I use to cut them apart, I sew. So I have a rotary cutter, a cutting mat, and one of the clear rulers. It will handle 3 to 5 sheets at a time. You can also use, if you just have a few, you can use a scissors. Some offices, church offices, may have a big paper cutter. If you have a lot of them, you can take them to one of the office supply stores and they will often cut them up for you for a small fee. So there's a bunch of options. All of those are listed in the handout. And if you choose to go that way, we certainly will provide moral support over the telephone or whatever you need. All right.
Yep.
Jane, give us your second question. Let's just keep rocking those.
The second one is, when you send the postcards, do you send them like each one individually to the legislator, for example, or do you group them? Like if you have 15 for one person, do you group those and send them all together? Which is what we have done when we send postcards. Is that clear?
Yes, it's clear to me. Anita, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, You no longer have to sort by zip code or bundle them or anything. Every time I bring something to the post office or buy stamps, I ask the postal workers if we need to arrange them in any way. Should I keep the rubber band around them? What should I do? And they say, nah, just throw them in, because they're all going to be scanned by a machine. So nothing.
That's not really what I'm asking.
Okay. So
I'm asking that you, each postcard, you put a stamp on that postcard and send it, or can you take like 15 postcards, put them in a manila envelope and send it as a group? So it's less expensive.
Yeah, it can be less expensive. We've also delivered them. Yeah, that is an option. I think your break-even point was at about 13 or 14 postcards compared to 35 cents per postcard. Does that make sense?
You mean the weight of all of them together would be that expensive? I guess I'm not quite following you.
So there's a flat rate. Those flat rate boxes go for $4.95. And so if you divide $4.95 by 35 cents, you have around 15 postcards. So as long as you have at least 14 or 15 postcards in the flat rate box, then it's worth sending in a flat rate box as opposed to putting an individual 35-cent postcard stamp on every single postcard.
Yeah, that's good. I was thinking a manila envelope, which would not be, but I'll figure that out. I just
they
wanted
do
to know.
weigh it, and sometimes it's more, and the clerks will tell you what's
all right. Thank you.
Jane, we have not found that there's a difference in how they're counted. That postcards with a constituent signature would be counted individually, whether it came in as one piece of mail or as separate pieces of mail. I think that's one of the things that you're asking. And what was your third question, Jane?
Just how do you cover the costs of these various costs that we're talking about?
I'll answer that one because this is in my budget area. At first, we didn't know that it was going to be such a going concern. And so it has come out of our social justice budget. And so now that we've been doing this for about a year and a half, we are going to our foundation for a grant. We've also had individual congregants who have said that they would donate a roll of stamps. That's the biggest expense. And so we might do a stamping Sunday and ask people to bring in rolls of stamps or something. So I think one way is to be creative about it, perhaps do a special collection one Sunday and say, this is going to fund our congregational advocacy program. That's the way that I talk about it, is congregational advocacy. How are we trying to really change the system, putting our values out in the world? And so people tend to really get it that way. Okay, who else has questions that they would like to share? Laura has your hand raised.
Hi. Yeah,
Hey,
I just have two quick questions. One is that would you be willing to share your kind of background information as well for the card of the week, so that if we have congregants asking us questions, we could have more depth? I see Anita smiling.
Yeah, I think Barbara would readily share things with me, and sometimes we write bill summaries, and I always like to tell people at the table what the strategy is for doing this.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And then I'm just curious about when the cards do come out, whether they're in PDF or in Word, particularly because we'd probably end up doing it black and white, so it might be helpful if they were in Word, just so that I could shift them all to black and white, or black, I guess. I wouldn't be printing in white. But I'm just curious about what format you think you'd send them in.
Kelly?
Yeah, Kathleen, you take that one.
Yeah, and I have a chat message from Mary Ness also. And it would probably be me that would be sending out the email with the image attached. I can send it as Word or as PDF, depending on what you have to print it with, or I can send both. Then you pull it off and print it wherever you are at. So if you need a PDF, I send you a PDF. If you need a Word document, I send you a Word document. We can experiment with other things too, I don't know.
And just to follow up on Mary's question, yes, anyone who emails me, you will get two things, but you need to email me to get the two things. One is all of the information that we've shared tonight, so that I don't want to send stuff to people who don't want to have it. So if you send me an email, we'll send you our documents from tonight that explain all of this. And second, if you let me know that you want us to send you what we're doing that week, just let me know that in the email, and then I'll send it to Kathleen, and somebody will call you and we'll have a conversation about it. You know, we'll talk about it. That's kind of the idea. I think what we want to do is not say, just here's a sheet of postcards, go do it. We're hopeful that we can be in relationship and help give you some support as you go along. But if you don't want that, you can just say, yeah, just give us the cards and we're good to go. Mary, I hope that answered your question. I'm going to unmute our phone people one more time just to see if there were other things you had. Mary, do you have another question?
I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, you can. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm listening to you on my phone. I wasn't able to get it hooked up to my computer, so I didn't realize that you could hear me. Yes, if I understand you right, you're saying that you would send us the postcards that would be pre-printed on the issue that you have selected for that week. Is that correct?
Not quite. We will send you a document that you can then print and cut. The postcards will be formatted, but then you would print them and cut them. We also, I think, will need to send who we hope they're going to go to. We've not talked about it would depend on the actual thing. Are we sending something to the Senate Judiciary Committee? Then it's all the same representatives. If you're sending something to your U.S. congressman, then we'll help you find their address if you need help with that.
So we select our own issue and either print that or have our congregants write it. And what you send us is a document that is simply a postcard size. And is that what happens? I'm sorry, I've not really followed.
Not quite. Okay, so Mary, after we've gone through all of those steps that we talked about, you know, figuring out doing our research and figuring out the issue and formatting and all of that, we come out with a document, a page that has it's formatted to have 4 postcards on it. Right, 8.5 by 11 page gets 4 postcards on it. Mm-hmm. We would email you the one that we've formatted for that particular week, and then you would print it, cut it, have your congregant sign it, and send it out. But this is one of the reasons why we kind of want to be in conversation. We wouldn't send it without sort of having a conversation with you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's our first time sort of going out and helping other people do this. So there may be some questions that we've not fully thought through. We've thought through a lot, but your questions are helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Karen asked, how much do you budget for this for the year? As Kathleen said, we send out close to 100 postcards a week. That's about $35 a week in postage for us through the program year. We're a large mid-size congregation. So it depends a lot on the size of your congregation, who's there. This past week, we asked each one who's to sign 2 cards, just 1 but 2, because that was the best strategy. So we've got about $1,200 out of a 9-month program year. We do meet in the summer, but Active Voices, I don't think we signed in the summer last year. So for us, it's around $1,200 a year. Depends on the size of your congregation, and we don't do it every single week. That is true. We do it most weeks, but not every single one. So, other questions that you might have for us?
I guess I would add a question. I mean, I know that you all are willing to send out emails with the information, so forth and so on. Is the Active Voices crew open? Like, are you all mobile to coming out and doing like some on-site, like setting up at churches, like if a congregation, say for instance, Above Every Name, where I pastor at, and we want to host something, like, would you all be interested to come out and say, hey, we'd be willing to come out and kind of host the first one and kind of get things started, and so folks wouldn't necessarily feel like there's some of the mechanical pressures to perform it in the perfected ways that you all do? Is that, like, would you all get mobile? Can we hop on the highway?
I don't see why not. Marianne, you got your hand up. Tell us about it.
Whoops. We have actually done that once before. I'm a friend in the Door County UU Fellowship, and I persuaded them to work on the Great Lakes funding postcard. And of course, being in Door County, they are surrounded by the Great Lakes, or almost surrounded. And so they're very excited about that. I took postcards with me. It was, I was given time during the service to make an announcement about it, and helped with the table after the service, and we ran out of postcards. It was very successful. The one part of it, we were not developed enough yet to be able to really train people and work with them. So I'm hoping that through these kinds of things, we can support people in their further efforts. But it works really well. And I can't speak for everybody, but I think there could be enthusiasm about training groups in the metro area.
I have a follow-up question, Marianne, if I can jump in again. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
So in thinking about, I know we're about to close out, but in thinking about this, I know at the church that we're partnered with, Unity Church Unitarian here in St. Paul, there's a group called Tower Club, which is a group of youth, kind of young adults, who are, feel passionate about particular things, and just wondering in which ways do you all, offer these services or this kind of thing to younger audiences that may feel called to start an initiative of their own. I mean, is this kind of open to all ages, or is it just to adults? I mean, these are kind of some of the questions I'm thinking about.
You bet. Young people these days are feeling their power, and if we can help them make a difference, be heard by their legislators, I think that's just great.
Yes, we would love to do that. One of the challenges of our Active Voices group, it's both really good and it creates a little challenge, is that we meet during the week, during the day. So most of our people who are meeting during the week are working folk, are retired folks. So people who are working a regular 9-to-5 job can't always join us. But we have been joined by some folks who work at night or work a different kind of gig, and we've had some young people to come and join us. So we would love to engage more young people in this. And we do have young people to sign our cards. Karen asked, what's the size of our congregation? We're about 400 members, usually between 175 and 225 come to services on Sunday morning. And we get a lot of participation of people who want to join. Folks, I am aware that it is 8 o'clock, and I really want to honor the time commitment that you've made here tonight. So grateful that you chose to spend this chilly night with us, and you, honest to God, you've warmed our hearts. So we're really glad for that. It is a pleasure to get to do this work with these thoughtful, committed, rowdy, funny, intelligent, feisty ladies, women. I'm just so honored to get to work with you. Danny, we appreciate everything that you do at Moose Jaw, and thanks for making tonight available to us. My email again, if you want to send me a message, is Kelli, Kelli, at firstunitarian.org. And with that being said, I think we can say thank you so much and good night.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.